DreAllDay.com.
You're now tuned in to the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day, to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to occur. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative, which is the go-getter energy that moves all of us, including yourself, especially yourself, as a matter of fact, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then here's what we're going to do. We're going to put all this together into one bundle, one package, one mindset, one framework, one approach. We got several books on the subject, and we're giving you a daily masterclass. That is what you're listening to right now. It comes out every single day. That's what daily means. It is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is how to think versus what to think. Now, before I get into explaining where this topic is coming from and where we're going, let me remind everybody that I have a text message line where I want you to text me and tell me the best insight that you gleaned from today's masterclass. You can send me a text directly at the number 305-384-6894. Once you text me there, not only will you be able to engage with me directly, you will also be part of my texting community, which means you will receive my daily motivation text message, which I send out every single morning to everybody who's in my texting community. So even if you just want to get the daily motivation text, just send me a text right now, just say hi, and you will be in my daily motivation. You will be in my community and get the daily motivation text. Now, this topic right here, how to think versus what to think, this is related to the critical thinking episodes that I did in episodes 1826 and 1827. And this is a really important topic to talk about, especially these days with so many of us being indoctrinated by media that has gone so far past objectivity, not even trying for objectivity anymore, even though every human being has biases. Nobody can be completely objective, but these days people aren't even trying to anymore. And when I say media, I'm not just talking about the news networks. I'm talking social media is included when I say media. So mainstream media, social media, and every other kind of media in between and outside of those two. But nobody's trying to be objective anymore today. Everybody is kind of trying to play for their home team, so to speak. Whatever side they are with, or whatever ideology they agree with, that's the only thing that they are willing to tell people to think about. They're not willing to tell people, hey, here's how you can think about this. They're telling people what you should think. And if you're not thinking the quote unquote right way on certain things, you're being attacked, or you're being shunned, or you're being completely ignored. Maybe even go as far as being canceled. And I talked about all of these things in different topics of this show. I talked about cancel culture in episode number 1755, the scary truth about cancel culture, if you haven't listened to that one yet. But this one is important because with so many people going so far past and outside of objectivity and just completely forgetting about objectivity, today I want to lay out the path for anyone out there who is still at large, anyone who wants to be a critical thinker, or you want to teach critical thinking to anyone else. There are a few principles that you need to understand when it comes to your thinking. Because again, I laid out critical thinking in episodes 1826 and 1827. So if you haven't listened to those two episodes, I would suggest you go check those right now. That's how to be a critical thinker, and then the habits of a critical thinker in those two episodes. But we're going to get into how to think versus what to think here today, with how to think being the ideal. If you're going to listen to another person, that person should be talking to you about how you can think about things, not what you should think about things. And if you're listening to someone, I don't care who it is, I don't care if it's a teacher, if it's a governmental official, if it's a superior at your job, if it's a parent of yours, if it's someone that you've always looked up to all your life, and they're telling you what you should be thinking instead of how to think about things, then you got to be careful about anything you hear from that person, because this person obviously has thrown their objectivity out the window, and not only have they married their opinion, but they're trying to tell you that you should marry their opinion. They're trying to marry you into their family of thought. But the challenge with marrying someone else into your family of thought is that not everybody's like you. Not everybody has the same opinions as you. No two people have the exact same ideas and the exact same perspectives on everything. Some people may appear that way because a lot of people just don't think for themselves. But you don't want to have too many people around you who are always telling you what to think, rather than trying to help you understand how to think. So everything I'm going to talk about here today, I want you to not only check yourself for the way that you explain things to other people, the way that you talk about things with other people. Are you talking to people about the ideas of how they're thinking about stuff, or are you trying to indoctrinate them or admonish them and tell them what to think about things. And then check the people around you. Check your parents, check your teachers, check your coworkers, check your friends, check the people that you listen to and subscribe to and follow online, and ask yourself, are these people trying to share with you how to think about things and offering you ideas and giving you information and letting you come to your own conclusions? Or are they telling you what you should think or what you're supposed to think about things based on their perspective, not your perspective, but their perspective? I want you to consider that as you listen to everything we talk about here today. So let's get into it. Point number one, the topic once again is how to think versus what to think. Number one, you must get involved in the process of your own learning. Or if you want to learn how to think rather than have other people tell you what to think, you must get involved, actively involved in your own learning. Understand that learning, everybody, does not mean memorization and recitation of information that someone else gave you. Now, memorization and recitation of information is usually what happens in school. That's pretty much how school works. I'm not saying all schools are like that. I'm not saying all teachers. I know I have teachers in my audience. I'm not saying all teachers just do that. But if someone is memorizing and reciting information, usually they got that formula is what we learn in school. Now, all the teachers who are listening to me here, all right, can we agree that not all teachers are the same? Can we agree that you as a teacher and you as a wider group of teachers, y'all come in different shapes and sizes, y'all have different skill sets. The same way, not every basketball player has the same abilities, not every podcaster is equally as good. All teachers ain't the same. Just because they're a teacher doesn't mean that they're good. There are good teachers and there are teachers who ain't shit. And any of you who's a teacher, you know this to be a fact. And actually, it's much easier to fire a basketball player or a podcaster by just not listening to their stuff or not signing them to a contract than it is to fire a teacher who signed to a teachers union. But that's a different conversation for a different day. And teachers, you know what I'm talking about. And parents, you know it as well. The thing is this. When people are taught to memorize and recite information, all you're really learning is just how to hold in facts. Well, hopefully the things that you're memorizing and reciting are facts. And let's just assume that they are facts. All you're being taught is recall. As long as you can memorize something and you can recall it accurately enough, then you can get good grades in school, and then you can go to the best schools and you can get a scholarship and you can get a degree, and you can hang it up on your wall, and you have these credentials next to your name. And this is, if any of you have ever heard the question or seen the studies, or not even studies, I guess we won't say, but just heard people talk about examples of why do students who do really, really well in school, like the A students and the dean's list and the top of the class students, why do they seem to only do marginally well in quote unquote real life? One of the reasons is, now I don't know if there's ever been a direct study done on these things. I'm sure there are plenty of articles talking about it. But one of the reasons why people who do really well in school, where a lot of success is memorization and recitation, the reason why those people who do well in school may not always do so well in quote unquote real life, because real life is different for everybody, that's why I keep saying quote unquote, is that in real life, you have an open book test. All right. School is a closed book test. So if you're not good at memorization and recall, recitation, then you're not going to do well in school. You might do okay, but you're not going to do great. And if you're not the type of person who's interested in stationary information, stale information, is just sitting there and just remembering it and then reciting it back to the approval of your teachers and professors, then you're not going to do that well in school. You might be okay, but you're not going to do great. Those who are great at that do great at school. But when you get out there into the real world, it's not like that. The book is wide open, so you don't have to memorize anything. You just have to be able to find the information. You got to be able to ask the right question. That requires insight. Talked about that in episode 1177. And at the same time, the situation out in the world is not like school. School is a controlled environment where every day you sit down, shut up, the teacher tells you what you need to know, you remember it, you recite it on the test, you pass, you move on to the next grade. That's a controlled environment. Life is not a controlled environment. How many people here have ever expected life to go a certain way and then saw it go a different way? Everybody who's listening should have both hands in the air, because we've all had it happen a whole bunch of times. School doesn't work like that. School, you know exactly how it's going to work. The teacher knows how they're going to do it, and they do it how they want to do it, because it's a very controlled environment it is contained and controlled. Real life is not contained nor controlled. So in school, they can tell you what to think because the environment is so controlled that you can be right by just thinking whatever they tell you to think. But in life, if someone tells you what to think, what if you go out with that idea? Let's say you accept the idea of someone telling you what to think. Now, many of us, when we grew up as kids, our parents probably told us a lot of what to think rather than how to think. You went out into the world with your parents' thinking because they indoctrinated you with their thinking. And then you went out there with their ideas, and then you ran into an issue. At some point, you realized that your parents' way of thinking did not quite go so well with the way that you were living. Maybe it worked for how they lived, but it didn't work so much for how you lived, because the world changes, you're different. Even though you came from your parents, you're not them. So the situation was a little bit different and things didn't work out exactly as well, simply because you were using outdated ways of thinking or ways of thinking that just didn't connect with the way that you were personally living. This is one of the biggest challenges with what to think versus how to think, is that life is not a controlled environment. Life is not a science lab. Real life alters the lab tests. So this is one of the reasons why you have to get actively involved in your own learning. In other words, don't just memorize and recite what other people have told you. I don't care who it is, even myself, whoever. Do not just memorize and recite what other people say. You got to get active in figuring out your own knowledge and your own information. Doesn't mean you can't learn from other people. Doesn't mean you can't listen to other people. But you have to play around with whatever knowledge, information, input you get from other people and figure out how does it work within the context of your world. And if you're not sure, then you have to ask questions. That's where you learn, is by asking questions, not by just accepting what somebody else says, regardless of who they are or their credentials. As I just told you, there are a whole bunch of people who were very good at memorization and recitation. They have very impressive credentials, but do they really know anything? Do they know anything about how to deal with unpredictable situations when all their credentials came from being in a controlled, closed-in, contained environment? You tell me. Again, I'm asking the question. I'm not telling you how to think. I'm telling you how. I'm not telling you what to think, rather. I'm telling you how to think. Definition of learning is the acquisition of knowledge or skills through experience, study, or by being taught. Your teachers who teach you on matters of fact should be able to explain to you why a fact is a fact. And on matters of opinion or judgment, they should be able to explain to you all the different ways that something can be looked at and then allow you to decide for yourself. Let me say that one more time. And this is a really important point right now, especially with some of the things that I've heard are being taught in schools. And some of the things that I've heard are being pushed into the minds of students these days, from kindergarten all the way up through colleges. I talked about this specifically in episode 1886, Dissecting Critical Race Theory, if you haven't listened to it. But let me say what I just said one more time. Your teachers, I don't care who the teacher is. The teacher, you can look at me as a teacher. If you're listening to somebody's podcast, if you're reading someone's book, watching their YouTube channel, or you're sitting in their classroom. If your teacher is speaking on a matter of fact, factual information, they should be able to explain to you why that fact is a fact, so that you understand this is a factual piece of information, is black and white. It is generally unchanging. Now, a fact technically could change, but it's generally unchanging unless we get a whole new set of information. This is a fact and this is what it is. Now, on matters of opinion or judgment, which do not have right or wrong answers. See, factual information has a right or wrong answer. Who was the first president of the United States of America? The answer is George Washington. That's a fact. That's not a matter of opinion. Who is the current president as of the date I'm recording this, which is in August of 2021? The president is Joe Biden, as of today when I'm recording this. Who was the president before that? Donald Trump. Who was before that? Obama. Before that was George W. Bush. So those are factual pieces of information that are not changing. Now, on matters of opinion and judgment, which do not have right or wrong answers, your teacher should be able to explain to you that there is more than one way to look at this. Here are the different ways it can be looked at. They may have their own opinion, which is fine, and they should, if they're giving you their opinion or their judgment, they should be letting you know, hey, this is my opinion, this is my judgment, and this right here is a fact. On this show right here, I give you my opinions and judgments damn near every day here on this show, but you know that I'm giving you my opinions and judgment. I'm not telling you you need to think this way. I'm telling you this is the way that I think, and I explain to you how I got to the point that I've gotten to. Because if I was just giving you facts, then the episode wouldn't need to be 25 minutes, it could be 2 minutes. I'll just lay out the facts and it'd be over. There's nothing to talk about. There's nothing to explain. I don't have to explain the fact. But if I'm giving you an opinion or a judgment, then I'm going to explain how I got to that point. So your teacher, if they're speaking on a matter of opinion or judgment, they should be explaining to you the different ways things could be looked at and allow you to draw your own conclusions along with probably they're going to give you a little bit of their perspective, because remember, even though they're a teacher, they still are a human being, and every human being has an opinion. They should also be able to explain the difference between a fact and opinion, and they should be able to differentiate and make clear to you when they're giving you a fact versus when they're giving you an opinion. Again, something that I make a point of doing on this show. If I'm giving you something that's factual and I'm mixing it in with opinion, I make sure I make clear, all right, this part is the fact and this part is my judgment. This part is my opinion. But then they got to allow you to decide for yourself. That's when they got to step back. And your teacher should be able to explain to you the difference between fact and opinion, judgment call versus objective call. Morality, aka right versus wrong, is something that you learn not in school. That's something that you learn at home or maybe in your place of worship. Unless you happen to go to a school that is connected to your place of worship. Like when I was growing up, I had neighbors who were very devout Christians, and they went to a Christian school. So I guess in that school, they could be taught their morals at the same time. But when I went to school, I went to public school, and I wasn't heavily into any religion. The morals, the right versus wrong, that was taught by mom and dad at home. Then I went to school and I learned fact, opinion, right, not right and wrong, but right answer, wrong answer on tests, math tests and art class and music class and things like that. Right and wrong is taught by parents. Morality, that right and wrong, your parents should be teaching that. Parents who are listening to this. Your teachers, school teachers, don't teach kids right versus wrong. All right? The teacher's word is not bigger than the parent's word, at least not in my opinion. That's not the way that I grew up. And I would think the parents who are listening to this would agree with me. But if you don't, I gave you my texting line. You can let me know if you see things differently. Point number 2. Today's topic, once again, is how to think versus what to think. Now, when you're learning how to think, you question everything. Even, this is important, your own assumptions and beliefs. As a matter of fact, especially your own assumptions and beliefs. Let me repeat. When you're learning how to think versus what to think, you question everything, especially your own assumptions and your own beliefs. The wisest, smartest people are perpetually asking questions and seeking answers. The foolish people are constantly asserting and never questioning. By the nature of this show right here, as I just explained in point number 1, I'm asserting something damn near every day. I'm giving you my perspective. I'm giving you my opinion and letting you do whatever you want to do with it. However, in my defense, I set the show up that way so I could be the teacher. While also, I'm not admonishing you to think the way that I think. Never on this show do I say you need to think the way that I think. I tell you how I think, how I'm thinking about things. I explain to you why. I tell you where I got my perspective from. I give you some context from where I got my perspective. I'm not asking you to agree. If you don't agree, you are 100% justified in not agreeing. That's all right. You can engage with me. Ask somebody who is on my text list. People engage with me in the text and tell me that they don't agree with what I'm saying. They ask me questions and we can engage. It's fine. As long as we keep it respectful, it's all good. You don't have to agree with me. I don't want everybody to agree with me. If everybody agree with me, I wouldn't need this show. Because what am I going to say that you have never thought about if we all got the same opinions? The foolish are constantly asserting, never questioning. But as I'm saying, I set up this show to share with you how I feel and hopefully giving you some game at the same time. But at the same time, I don't admonish you if you don't think how I think. You could take it or leave it, but never say that it was offered to you. Never say it was not offered to you, that I never offered, hey, look, this is the way I'm seeing things. This is the way you can look at things. I'm explaining the how of how I think, and maybe some of that you can take with you and use it yourself. Maybe you'll take all of it. Maybe you'll take half. Maybe you'll take a little piece. But I'm making sure I'm delineating between the two. There's a clear line of delineation between where I'm giving you some factual information, where I'm giving you my judgments and opinions. And anyone who's going to give you their judgments and opinions, because listen, everybody has them, they should make sure that they're being clear which is which when they're separating from fact. These days, a lot of people are conflating fact and opinion and not telling you the difference and wanting you, not even wanting you, but sometimes demanding that you accept their conclusion when it's not even based in fact. It's actually mostly based in opinion with a little bit of fact mixed in, which gives them some plausible deniability when you call them out on their bullshit. But you got to get used to these verbal games that people play these days. This is why you really got to get good at your communication skills so you can learn the bullshit that people are trying to pull on you these days. And there's a whole lot of it that people are doing. I talked about this in episode 1264, 3 communication skills that you must master. Point number 3. Today's topic, once again, is how to think versus what to think. Third thing is you must assume ignorance. Ignorance means not to know something. So when I say assume ignorance, assume that the things you think you know, maybe you don't know. Now, it doesn't mean that you walk around just not knowing anything and never having an answer to anything and always just being completely uncertain of yourself. That's not what I mean here. When I say assume ignorance, what I mean is keep your mind open to the fact that what you know, quote unquote, to be true, or what you believe to be true, maybe is just not true. Maybe there's some new information that could change your mind if you keep your mind open enough to changing it. I talked about this in episode 846. True confidence means having an ability to disconfirm yourself, meaning when you feel like your information is confirmed, be willing to disconfirm it, or at least try to disconfirm it. So, hey, maybe I'm not as smart as I think I am. So instead of assuming that you're right, assume that you're wrong. When you're right, see, because the thing is, when you believe that you're right in what you're saying, you'll defend yourself. When you believe you're wrong, what do? You shut up, you listen, you learn, you read, you get more information. When you believe that you don't have information, then you listen so you can get the information, or you read, or you watch. When you think you're right, what do? You just defend yourself and you keep talking. There was a famous situation that went viral. There was a TV show, I guess it was a podcast, not a TV show, but a YouTube video that I guess it was a podcast being recorded, where there was this former NFL player named Brandon Marshall. And I believe he's based down here in South Florida. I think he has a gym or some kind of training facility down here in South Florida. And he was doing a interview / conversation with a couple other athletes. I don't remember exactly who was on there. I just remember him. And he's talking to these athletes about, he's talking to these other athletes about what athletes can do with their professional careers and post-career, stuff like that. And one of the people he was talking to was 3 guys talking, Brandon Marshall and 2 other guys. One of the 2 other guys he asserted that, hey, NBA contracts are guaranteed. And NBA contracts are guaranteed. That's a factual piece of information. Brandon Marshall, who played in the NFL, not the NBA, the NFL, he, for some reason, got really, really animated about this, and he asserted the contrary. He said, no, NBA contracts are not guaranteed. And the other 2 guys were like, yes, they are. Brandon Marshall got more angry every time that they asserted that, yes, the contracts are guaranteed. This guy just got more angry. He's banging on the table. He stands up from his seat. He's yelling. You can see the veins bulging out of his face and his neck. He's getting so excited over this. He didn't even play in the NBA, but he's asserting that NBA contracts are not guaranteed. And then he says, oh, go look it up. Go look it up. The NBA contracts are not guaranteed. First of all, that's a couple things here. First of all, it's a logical fallacy to assert something and then tell the other person that the burden of proof is on them to disprove your claim. If you claim something, the burden of proof is on you to prove it. So first of all, that was a logical fallacy by Brandon Marshall to even to tell the other person to go look up something that he claimed. And secondly, he was factually incorrect, which is why it went viral, because he was saying something that was clearly factually wrong that he could have easily known if he would just calm down and looked it up. Why he got so excited, I will never understand. If I ever meet him, maybe I'll ask him. But anyway, that clip going viral was what it came to mind when I was thinking about this right here. But anyway, let's talk about Socrates. Let's go from Brandon Marshall to Socrates. Socrates was recognized as he's a Greek philosopher from back in the day. He was recognized during his time as maybe the wisest man in all of Athens, Greece. Now, Socrates was puzzled by this assertion. People were asserting that he was the wisest guy out there. He was puzzled by people calling him this because Socrates had the belief that of his own ignorance. He believed that he knew nothing. So he went looking to find out if there was anybody wiser than he was, because he said, there's no way I could be the wisest person out here. A bunch of people know more than me. So he started looking around Athens trying to find somebody who was wiser than he was. And to Socrates' dismay, he found that so many people were so certain of their knowledge, while Socrates himself didn't think he had knowledge of anything. His conclusion was that maybe he was the wisest person because he knew he was, in terms of knowledge, he was the poorest. He was the most broke person in terms of knowledge because he didn't believe he knew anything. And because of his lack of knowing everything, he was always questioning. This is why whenever you hear someone talk about the Socratic method of helping people or working with someone is not to give them the answers, but to ask them question after question after question until they come up with the answers. This is what sometimes, if any of you has ever had a coach or a therapist, This is what they'll do. They'll use a Socratic method on you where instead of giving you answers, they just keep asking you questions until you come up with the answers. Because as I've said here many times on the show, what you say to you is infinitely more valuable than what I or anyone else says to you. So this is why the Socratic method worked so well. And the Socratic method was, again, all about, I don't know anything, but I'm going to ask you questions until you know something. Knowing nothing, Socrates was perpetually thinking and learning, yet never asserting. And this is why, hundreds of years after his death, his name is still mentioned, and methods are named after him and hasn't been canceled, even though he was a white male, because of the value of what he was putting out there into the world. So let's recap today's class, which is how to think versus what to think. This is a critical thinking topic related to episodes 1826, 1827. It's really important today when so many of us, again, are being indoctrinated by media that has moved so far past objectivity or never even tried. So today, let's talk about that path for anyone who plans on being a critical thinker. Number one, get involved in the process of your own learning. Learning does not mean memorization or recitation. The definition of learning is the acquisition of knowledge or skills through experience, study, or by being taught. So when someone is giving you information, they should be able to tell you factually why a fact is a fact. And if they're giving you an opinion or judgment, explain to you that it's an opinion or judgment, make it clear between the two, and let you know, hey, here's some other ways you can look at this. Here's how I came to my conclusion, but you don't have to have my conclusion. You can see it in a different way. And I believe that fact and opinion and judgments, those are things that can be talked about in a place like school, but morality, aka what is right versus what is wrong, that's something that should be taught at home by parents or in your place of worship. Point number two, question everything, even your own assumptions and beliefs, actually, especially your own assumptions and beliefs. The wisest people are always asking questions and seeking answers. The foolish people are always asserting their knowledge and never questioning anything, like that football player who was asserting that NBA contracts are not guaranteed, was made no sense whatsoever. But of course, he thought he was the smartest person in the room. So point number three, assume ignorance. I talked about this in episode 846. True confidence means disconfirming yourself. Instead of assuming that you're right, assume that you're wrong. When you are right, you defend yourself and assert. When you're wrong, you shut up and listen. Socrates was the wisest man in all the land, not because he had the most knowledge, but because he had the least knowledge. And because of his lack of knowledge, he was always asking questions, listening, and learning. Whereas everybody else who thought they were so smart were always asserting and not listening at all. That's why they were not able to learn. Therefore, they couldn't be wise because they weren't learning anything. Send me a text. Tell me the best insight you got from today's class. My number is 305-384-6894. And if you are interested in working with someone who can help hold you accountable, help you make sure you get the highest return on investment out of your talent, potential, and opportunity in your personal and professional life, then you might be a great candidate for my 3rd-day mastermind. It is the only place that I offer direct one-on-one coaching. If you're interested, go down in the show notes, click on the link that says sign up for a call. It's workonyourgameuniversity.com/call. We'll get on a Zoom call, talk about where you're at, where you want to go, and see if I could possibly be the bridge between those 2 points. Work on your game. Dre all day.